I get these beautiful grasses in my foreground. What I thought I'd show you in this video is how to add some grasses in the foreground. There's some beautiful colour down there, some burnt sienna, some cobalt turquoise light that's been mixed with a bit of burnt sienna, and there's some soft abstract marks there. But what I want to put in the foreground, I'm just shaking my masking fluid. What I want to put in the foreground there are some grasses. I am in love with this particular pen. I'm just going to wipe off the tip of it and just double check that it's flowing. Oh yeah. Now I'm going to do lovely flicky marks. If I go slower, I'll get a line. If I go really fast, it's doing this pretty dotty thing. I'm going to put most of the grasses falling in to the image. Maybe some come out like that. I want some taller ones here. So I might put some that go out. I love the idea that you push other objects in your painting backwards by including some foreground marks. I'll paint over that shortly. There's these lovely marks here as well. So I might just include some suggestion here, and then just a little bit of texture. I'll just do some general dotties. If you apply your masking fluid with a brush, it's quite lovely to just flick your masking fluid, but since I'm using this pen, I'm just creating little dots with the tip. Right, some foreground, and then what I'll do is come back. I'm just going to wipe the tip of that. It seems to flow really well if you continue to keep the tip clean. So I'm going to come back, and when the masking fluid is dry, I will come back and paint some lovely washes over the masking fluid, and I'll get some beautiful effects. I'm just going to wipe that excess off my masking tape, because that'll make it dry a little faster. Okay, I'll be back when it's dry. Big cheap brush that I use all the time to activate the colours. So there's some of that beautiful blue, and looks a lot like cobalt blue, so that will do very nicely. Also with my cheap brush, I'm going to activate some of that cobalt blue. I do love squeezing out fresh paint, but I've been squeezing out so much fresh paint that it's now filled up. I'm going to activate these beautiful grey browns that are over here on my palette. Burnt sienna right over there. Okay. Spray gently, grab some of these blues, and I'll put in some lovely soft marks that will make my masking fluid pop. Some of these grasses are going tall up there. There's some of this beautiful grey colour. There's the burnt sienna. Putting it into those grasses and then increasing the burnt sienna as well. Some of that turquoise, it was probably this turquoise. I'm just going to drop some phthalo turquoise into there. Okay, so I need to balance off some of those grasses. So I'm going to get a nice little tiny brush. I absolutely love my liner brush. There it is. I absolutely love this little liner brush. I'm going to wet it and add some green marks. It's pooling there, so I'm going to take a risk and tip my board this way, see what that water does if I let it run upwards. Just encourage some of the water to, mostly I want the water to shift out of this area here, because I'll end up with backgrounds, and I may or may not like those backgrounds. Okay, so most of these grasses I'm encouraging to go inwards, What I also want to do is put some grasses on the other side. So I'm going to come in with the grey down here. Perhaps they go up, perhaps they don't. And little tiny grasses on these ones, some suggestions over there. The tone is too dark, so I'm softening them all off with just water, water. And then a few more down here. I'm going to aim to leave a lovely gap here. I really love what the painter's done where it's run into the little spray. That's just so pretty. And that's what I call a happy accident. I'll put in some little grassy marks over there. That's grey that's on my brush, very soft. I'm trying not to disturb that because I really like the look of it. Have those grasses go randomly over there and it's trying to make it look like it's behind the tree. So that's nice, big drips appearing here and there. Just going to encourage them to move in a few directions. And I think that's looking much better already. And when I take the masking fluid off, that's when I'll know whether or not the painting is complete. What I've wanted to talk about was, when is a painting complete? If you're asking yourself the question, am I done? Usually that's a sign that you're not done yet, that there's something about your painting that you need to complete. So this one I felt needed some more foreground marks, so I chose masking fluid and then I've come over that with a colour. We are at the final end of this painting. Got masking fluid there and I need the masking fluid eraser. I love using these cheap yucky things. They get really yucky. They are so brilliant at making the job so fast. You're not spending all your time going with your finger. You just grab this little plastic. Oh, it's not plastic, it's rubber. Gathers up all the mucky bits. And I get these beautiful grasses in my foreground. Not only are they interesting and different, but also, look, it preserved the beautiful blue underneath. Oh, I just love what masking fluid can do for you. You just have to remember about hard lines. So I added a little bit over here as well. It's doing a very subtle job over there. I'm not sure that I wasn't just wasting my time. Love this bit down here. Oh, and I did some lovely little dotty bits. So now they're like two-tone. My first love in my art practice was printmaking. And I think that's partly what the masking fluid reminds me of. That you get this beautiful effect that's, they're marks that you made. So it's all about mark making. But they are also so interesting and you can't tell exactly how they're going to look. Is my foreground in the foreground? Yep, this tree is, and I wanted these to be in the foreground and they're not as foregrounded as I would like, so I just need to adjust those a little bit. So I've got a foreground, I'll adjust this in a second. I've got a midground, so I added some of these little tiny grasses, that's nice. And I added some texture here and that's reading as midground, so that's nice. And then this is the tree trunk that's sitting off in the distance. So I've got a foreground, a middle ground and a distant ground. So that part's going very nicely. I'm just going to come in with some darker marks. I think that's the way I'm going to resolve it. I think I might just add a few more of these mid-ground grasses. It's lovely. And they're looking a little bit lonely. So go back to my little liner. I'm just going to wet it and pick up lovely soft pale colour that's on my palette there. Grasses are very random. the whole time I'm using that lovely action where your hand goes flick, flick, flick. And if you flick off to nothing, you get a pointy mark at the end of your flicking. So you get lovely grasses like so. Just put in some little darker ones, and then I want darker ones down here. So I'm going to go into this colour here now. I don't actually know. I think it's a bit of raw. I think it's a bit of burnt sienna and it's other stuff. It's not even slightly good practice. So just ignore the fact that I've got this random colour on my beautiful palette. Okay, a little wetter, I think, to make the mark go longer. So if I want to go longer, I put my hand right at the very end and flick right up. So it's not just my elbow, not just my wrist, it's my whole arm that's doing it now. Okay, are they reading as being more foregrounded? I could do with more. I'm going to take some of that beautiful colour that could be raw sienna and mix it with my blue. If I mix it with quite a dark blue, I get a darker colour. I'm just going to add more water, which is a bit of a shame because it makes it lighter, but I do need it to be lovely and wet so that I can grab it and make some longer marks. There, it's running out of paint when I get up high. So I'll go a little slower and try and include the mark. All right, that's a bit better. I'm actually doing well going slowly. The occasional grass will go in the opposite direction. Just put some in that corner there. Perhaps quite a few that go over. Love the idea of creating messy grasses. All right, now they're reading as being in the foreground. Put some just here, and again I think I'll go slowly because I just am not getting quite the mark I want. There. Oh, that's better. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of this, what shall I include? That's a bit of cobalt. And here's a bit of ultramarine. It's like pushing your brush into Vegemite, because it's just moist. And I squeeze it straight into the little well there, so it's really thick. All right, now we've got some darker marks, and I'm going to just use the absolute tip of my brush to put in some suggested seed heads or flower heads. It's interesting, and it's interesting how when you observe grasses, they really do this. You really do have these seed heads on the end of them. I didn't mean to make those marks quite so heavy. So I'll just make this whole thing here a bit darker. Yeah, that's a bit odd. Grab a tissue. Ugh, press hard. Yep, got most of it off. That will do just fine. If that bothers me later, I might change the colour of it. But for now, I was putting little seeds on the end of my grasses. We have birds, and they love when you give them fresh grass that's got the seeds on the end. It's obviously something that they go foraging for naturally. Okay, how's that? Oh, that's better. I think I'll do that over here as well. Just mix those colours together. They're just beautiful greys. And been thinking about making a video about mud and muddy colours, because I find this is something people as in students say, how do you avoid muddy colours? And I totally avoid mud all the time, because I don't consider this mud. I think consider that a complementary grey. But I avoid mud all the time by using pure colours. So maybe I don't need to make a video on it, because I've just told you exactly how to avoid mud, and that is to use pure colours. Yeah, okay, there is a bit more information that I would need to give you. I'm going to suggest this is a rock by giving it a base. Just fill in down to the tape there. Okay. Oh, that's nice. I wonder if that will work on this one as well. Just give it a little bit of tone and texture, so a bit of dry brush to make it look more like a rock. Ah, okay, that's lovely. Okay, so final eye over it. Do I have foreground, midground, distance? Yes, I've got at least 3 categories there. That's nice. You could have way more, of course. Do I have some dark tones, some mid-tones, some light tones? Yes. That's the second question you can ask yourself. Third thing you can do is take a photo if you're still uncertain about whether or not your painting is finished. But I also find that that little intuitive little voice in your head that goes, oh, that's not right, then change it. That will be a sure indication that that bit is bothering you and probably does need to be changed. So I'm going to give this one a little, either some soft grasses. I'll start with soft grasses. That's just water on my brush. Oops. Just start with some soft grasses and into that water, see if I can knock some. It's just that the base of that tree is not reading like the base of a tree. Let's come over there a little bit. A bit of scumbling. Some people call it scumbling when you get your brush and try and ruin it slowly. There, okay. That's a bit better. Just giving it just a little bit more importance. Perhaps because it's in that quite a important position that it needed a little bit more attention. All right, how's that? Oh, okay, now it's got a little bit of grassiness in front of it, which is nice. These could do with a little bit of similar attention. A little bit of water and some soft marks into that. And grasses do often grow around the base of trees. It's very interesting. I don't really know the reason why. Take the tape off. This will help me stop fiddling. It certainly helps me stop making big changes. Just taking the tape off. Also, taking the tape off is fun. Pulling it off, it's a little bit like pulling dried glue off. You know, when you dry glue PVA on your fingers. All right, how's that going? That little frame is so lovely, and what it does, sign it in this turquoise. Of course, it won't look like that turquoise. And turquoise is semi-opaque, so that makes it a great colour to sign with because it's not going to be quite as transparent. Perhaps I'll start on the left, or maybe I think I'll be bold and go straight into the centre there. I sign my whole name, and I do that purposefully because I hope, and it has happened a couple of times where people have contacted me to say, are you the Marion Chapman that painted this painting? Okay guys, that was cool. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for commenting. I'm really enjoying the stuff that the feedback that you've got to give me. That's been really, really lovely. Thank you guys. See you on the next one.